Al Jazeera Podcasts.
Today, the oil factor.
Israeli warplanes have struck 3 oil storage depots and refining facilities in the Iranian capital. The latest strikes come as President Trump threatens to expand the operation.
Is oil going to be what escalates or stops the U.S.-Israel war on Iran? I'm Malika Bilal, and this is The Take. Hey, everyone. If you're on the internet, and that's where you're watching this, then chances are you have seen the news about surging oil prices. But do you know how that will affect you? Or have you already seen those prices have an impact where you are? As you're watching the rest of this episode, leave us a comment letting us know. And if you're listening to this on a podcast app, you can also rate and review us, which helps other people find the show. Thanks.
I'm Zein Basravi. I'm a senior correspondent for Al Jazeera English, and I've been based out of Doha for more than 15 years, covering all kinds of things. And I wish I was not covering it. It's come to our doorstep now. It's come full circle. It's happening in Doha too now.
Yeah. Well, Zein, welcome back to The Take. Thank you for taking time out of your evening in Doha to talk to us. We are speaking on Monday, March 9th, which is day 10 of the U.S.-Israel war on Iran and Iran's retaliation. And over the past few nights, we have seen some pretty apocalyptic images coming out of Iran. Israel has been attacking Iranian oil depots, leading to these huge, toxic black plumes of smoke and fire in the skies of Tehran. Iranians describe it as looking like night turned into day. So it is clear that Iran's oil is a main target. Was oil always going to be at the center of this war?
I mean, it seems like an obvious thing to say, but yes, absolutely. I mean, I every time there's some kind of conflict here, I go back to my college paper days. And I remember when I was working the campus beat, and there was this really amazing lecturer in town, a Middle Eastern studies expert, to him, and I put my tape recorder in his face just to give you a sense of how old I actually am. Mm-hmm. And I asked him, if you were to talk about the main challenges to peace in the Middle East, and these constant invasions and American aggression and all of this stuff, what would you prioritize? He said there are 5 things that are the main challenges: oil, 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 oil. Mm. And that really stuck with me. And it's true. It's always been about oil. And as long as it is a priority as a consumable for the world, it will most likely always be like this in this part of the world. It's episodic.
Mm-hmm. Well, the latest episode in this saga is that as of this week, oil prices have reached the highest we have seen in 4 years. It's now hit more than $100 a barrel. Yeah. We've seen Iran target oil refineries in Gulf countries, and Iran has also effectively shut down the Strait of Hormuz, which is this vital shipping lane for countries like Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, United Arab Emirates. Right. These are major oil producers who now can't get the oil that they are producing out to other countries. What do these attacks on energy sites and this shutting down of this strait, what does it mean for how long this war can keep going?
I mean, that is the question. You're not the only person asking that question. Everyone who lives here is asking that question, right? Literally, all of our lives are tied into the money that is made from oil. The reason these cities can function is because of their natural resources and their ability to extract those resources, sell them, and then function. And how long is this going to go on? Well, Iran is doing exactly what it said it would if it was attacked. It's doing exactly what it said it would. I've covered Iran for years. This is a playbook. They broadcast this very, very openly. They said, if we are attacked for any reason, this will be a regional conflict. And we know you're our friends and neighbors, but if there are American assets on your territory, that is a choice you guys are making. From Iran's point of view, there's no innocent actors in this conflict. And so, whether you agree or disagree, what's happening on the ground is they are executing the plan that they have formed, they have publicized, they have projected and they are carrying it out now. So, how long is this going to go on? Well, I mean, the spokesman for a wing of the IRGC, this came out earlier today, I think. It was Ibrahim Zolfagari. He said that the United States has opened up a new chapter in the war by bombing Iran's energy infrastructure, talking about that attack on Tehran. And I've been in that part of Tehran. That hill country is gorgeous. There's national parks, there's hiking trails, there's restaurants in the valleys, there's coffee shops up there. People live up there. It's beautiful. And to see that whole area, like Tehran is a beautiful city, now covered in this toxic, natural disaster, effectively. It's really, really heartbreaking to see, but it's also something that will enrage Iranians. And what he said here is, if they can afford the price of oil at $200 a barrel, let them keep playing this game. So that's to give you a sense of how long, if you want to know how long this is going to go on, I think that's the clearest indicator yet. Iran's happy to keep this going until oil hits $200 a barrel, which would be, which the ramifications of that are mind-boggling. That'll have to be a whole nother episode to talk about what life for people like you and me, for people all over the world, will be like if oil hits $200 a barrel.
Well, Zein, we got to go there, because it's the people like you and me that are watching this and thinking, okay, $200 sounds like a lot. What does that actually effectively mean for life?
I mean, it's never hit that mark. And when it goes up to 108, 117, it costs twice as much to fill your tank. The price of food goes up. You talk about transport ships that take goods from here to there. They run on fuel that is more expensive. So the price of everything that goes from one part of the world to the other goes up. The price of stocking shelves goes up. The price of electricity. There'll be shortages in poorer countries, because there will be countries that can't afford to import oil or LNG. Transporting people, food, medicine, things like fertilizer for crops, getting humanitarian aid to places, everything. It's not just about filling your car and driving somewhere. It's literally everything is tied to the price of oil. And I know that seems like I'm overstating it, but it's hard to escape that fact.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned LNG, and so for those not in the know, that is liquefied natural gas, of which Qatar accounts for about 20% of global LNG exports.
It's the largest producer, I think.
Right. And it transits through the Strait of Hormuz, which now it can't, because shipping has ground to a halt there. So how important is that strait? We've done a whole episode on this, and we'll link it in the show notes, but bring us up to speed. When we say this strait has been closed, what does that actually really mean?
Oh, it's gridlock. That's what shutting the strait down means. And when I worked in Iran, we took a trip out to the Strait of Hormuz. We were in the waters. We went to Hormuz Island. It's a fascinating, gorgeous, beautiful place. But the waterway, when you're there, it seems big, but the sheer number of ships, the traffic that goes through. And there are places where it jams up because there's too many ships to safely navigate, this narrow waterway altogether. So it is a lot of heavy traffic through that area. It's not just liquid natural gas. It's not just oil. It's all kinds of things. It's food. It's cars. It's containers. It's produce. So when it's shut down, it is effectively gridlock. So it means nothing gets through. And that has a direct impact on the market. So, I mean, it's the thing about the Strait of Hormuz is when there's an escalation in the Strait of Hormuz, it quickly goes from being a regional issue to a global energy problem and a global economic problem for the majority of the population of the world.
Well, I want to bring Iran in here, an Iranian official. This is Iran's foreign ministry spokesman, Ismail Baghai. And he says the idea behind all of this is clear. He says their design, meaning U.S. and Israel, their design is clear. Their enterprise is quite obvious. They aim at partitioning our country to take illegal possession of our oil riches. Their objective is to violate our sovereignty, defeat our people, and undermine our humanity. So he was speaking on Monday. Now, the U.S. has also spoken out about its aims. They've made their plans for Iran's oil reserves pretty clear. Here's what White House Press Secretary Carolyn Levitt said on Fox News.
The temporary goals of Operation Epic Fury to obliterate the Iranian regime will be a very good thing for the energy and oil markets and for oil prices across the globe in the long term, when you no longer have a terrorist regime that is restricting the free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz and to the rest of the world.
Do you think that message is going to land with Americans and others who are also going to be affected by this because of what the U.S. did?
I mean, there's precedent, isn't there? This is not the first time the United States or a Western government has done something like this. And it's not the first time it's been done to Iran. I mean, 1953, the coup that saw the downfall of Mossadegh at the time.
That is the coup that toppled Iran's democratically elected prime minister. Mohammad Mossadegh had moved to nationalize oil production in Iran. So shortly after his election, the CIA began to plan his overthrow, teaming up with Britain's MI6.
And so an elected leader was overthrown. You know, I don't want to oversimplify it. There's a lot of gray area. There's a lot of details there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of inflection points. There's a lot of, you know, pressure points that all sides are using against each other. But at the end of the day, this is just about, you know, smashing and grabbing resources and needing to control what is essentially, you know, a vital resource that is a source of energy, but also by way of that, a source of being able to control markets and have power and compel other nations to do what the United States and Israel want them to do. And you know, the American aims and Israel aims converge and diverge, but for the most part, you know, having a weakened Iran, and you know, whether it's weakening their nuclear program or weakening their control of oil markets, having a weak Iran is good for their ability to control the region, and you know, dividing Iran from, you know, Arab allies, dividing Iran from, you know, Arab neighbors, you know, or sometimes allies. That is. Right now, everything is going perfectly according to the Israeli and American plan, because a weaker Iran is a more easily controllable Middle East.
Perfectly according to plan. And so the question will be, what will knock this plan off of its axis? Because we're talking about control. Europe is not an exception when it comes to its own aims. So the UK and France have both deployed warplanes and warships to defend their energy assets in places like Cyprus. And based on what you're seeing, does it seem like the war and who fights in it could expand over oil because of a fact like that? Could we see it expand to other countries?
I mean, I don't know what that would look like, only because it's really hard to try to imagine it, because it would be a, you know, I can't even, worst case scenario doesn't seem to really encapsulate it. Spillover, absolutely. We saw spillover almost immediately, right? The Gulf states were roped in right away, but that was somewhat expected. There was this, you know, drone fired at Cyprus. Iran said it wasn't them. There was explosions at Ras Laffan and an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. Iran said it wasn't them, but we never really, you know, heard more about that. And we're seeing, you know, protests and anger in Iraq and Pakistan over the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei. And, you know, there's definitely flashpoints popping up everywhere. I think, you know, Israel has said, you know, it's named other countries. It's you know, Israeli officials have said, you know, not very veiled threats towards Turkey, towards Pakistan. There is this desire to change the narrative in the region, to change power dynamics, you know, for good. And yeah, I mean, I think European countries sending military vessels either to evacuate people or to as a precautionary measure is a risk of escalation. I think European countries are great at being pulled into American fights, whether they like it or not. It always becomes inevitable because markets are so linked together, politics are so linked together.
Yeah.
So that is definitely a real fear. But I think Iran is reacting. Israel is in the driver's seat. In the region, you know, is Israel and then the United States, they're in the driver's seat for dictating what kind of violence is playing out and what's happening. And everyone else right now seems to be reacting.
Hmm. And meanwhile, the people on the ground in all of those countries, yourself included, are living through it, living through those reactions. So, Zein, so far we have been talking about this in the context of the economy, and that is how some world leaders have been talking about it too. But a lack of energy infrastructure also impacts people's livelihoods and their lives. We touched on this a little earlier. We also know that the casualties of this war have already been devastating. We've seen more than 1,000 killed in Iran alone and more wounded. There's been an 8th U.S. soldier killed. And as we discussed, we're seeing an escalation in military presence as people try to protect the oil. What would expansion of this war, if that were to happen, what would it mean for Iranians and for others who are in the line of fire?
So I think we're already seeing it mushrooming in Lebanon. We're seeing, tensions in Iraq. We're seeing, obviously, what's happening in the Gulf Arab states. We're seeing it. The impact would be felt in nations around the Mediterranean Sea for sure. An escalation, and I don't think we'll see countries intervening to fight Iran. I think to do things like protect shipping lanes and to protect interests. I think you'll see a military buildup, but and even if it's signaled that is not for offensive means, simply by virtue of being there, that becomes a node, that becomes a beating pulse of a kind, and that alone, if there's more of a military buildup by other nations, that could signal a reaction by armed actors, by other countries, by Iran's allies, even though for many of them in the region, so-called Iranian proxies are much weakened. But for the Iranian people, I mean, they're already, we've seen what happens to civilian populations when Israel and the United States begin to bomb. We've seen it for years now in Gaza. We've seen what they've done. We've seen them do it, in Yemen. We've seen it in Iraq. We've seen it in Afghanistan. So there's precedent set. So it would look possibly a lot like that. Massive civilian casualties, turning back the clock on cities and communities that have been thriving for decades and centuries and millennia, and just doing it for the sake of suppressing those people. And I think, Iranians are already some of the most isolated people on the planet. They're already, their lives have been interrupted by, generations of sanctions and international, pressure and, internal domestic pressure by their own governments. So, an external war throwing people into yet more chaos. The Iranian people, they deserve better from their own government, and they deserve better from the international community.
Mm. Well, Zein, I want to end with a post from one of the leaders that got us into this, and that is Donald J. Trump. This is on Truth Social. He posted, "Short-term oil prices, which will drop rapidly when the destruction of the Iran nuclear threat is over, is a very small price to pay for USA and world safety and peace. Only fools would think differently," he writes in all caps. Signed, President DJT. Only fools would think differently. Do you think public pressure about oil prices and what their effects are going to be on the general public, whether that's in the U.S., whether that's in other countries, could be the thing that stops this war?
In the past, it has been oil prices that has prompted policy changes. In the U.S. and really anywhere else, people vote with their wallets, and when their wallets are empty, that's what affects it. But I think looking at what President Trump is, how he is, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know what the answer is to that. I would hope so. I would hope that it hits 120 and everyone freaks out and he backs off. And I think that's what the Iranians are hoping for too, put enough pressure, make it too expensive. I mean, Iranians I've spoken to have said over and over again, they know that this is asymmetrical warfare. They don't have what they need to fight America toe to toe. They don't have militarily, they can't beat America in a fight. But what they know they can do is raise this region, raise it to the ground, change the face of it. You know, if they're going down, they're taking everybody with them, and they will change the reality on the ground in perpetuity here. And they know that they can make it so expensive that if they attack Iran, if they try to take Iran down, if they do take Iran down, it'll be so expensive they won't be able to afford building back after. So that is, you know, you talk about a deterrent. For them, they don't have a nuclear deterrent. They do have an economic deterrent. So that is what they're hoping for as well. Having said that, I think Trump is, you know, everything he does, if you look at every policy he's made and every speech he makes about different places in the Middle East, even, you know, Gaza is a great example. It's a sales pitch to try to distract you long enough to make sure you sign the paper and then it's too late. So when it comes to the war in Iran, he's saying short-term oil price hikes won't hurt that much. It'll be over when it's over and then it'll be great. He's buying time to get people to sign on, to let him keep doing what he's doing until it's too late. And my worry is, what does too late mean? Even when I say it, I worry what too late looks like. And, you know, the Iranians, the Israelis, the Americans, everyone has signaled that they are willing to keep fighting and keep going at this and keep hurling stuff at each other and at others and around all over the place for much longer. You know, 5 weeks, 100 days, all these numbers thrown around by different officials. The people, the civilians, the regular folks that are just here making business, sending their kids to school, just living their lives, they won't be able to sustain that.
Yeah. Zein Basravi, thank you so much for your analysis on this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. This was great. It was great to talk to you again.